What is it about Pope Francis?
I wish I knew, and I wish he could bottle it, because I'd order a case, because I need it. He doesn't need anybody to script him. He doesn't need any pro to say, you ought to go there, you ought to do this. He just does it with a genuineness and a naturalness that people are shaking their head and saying, this guy's the real thing.
In un'unione irregolare, perché è adulterio.
Che farà lei?
Resisterò, non posso fare altro.
We have to listen to lay people who are living in this situation. We have to take people as they are and where they are, then to accompany them on their way to Christian life.
Cardinal Walter Casper says that Pope Francis will give the Church's teaching on morality a, quote, new tone, and that the door is open to divorced and remarried Catholics receiving the sacraments. How about women preaching from the pulpit? Because that's coming too. Or women deacons. What about women cardinals? We know that's coming. The end of the celibate priesthood for men, that's just around the corner. It's all coming. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. There are some very strange things happening. I would say some very apocalyptic things happening to our church right now. Things that we just have never heard in the history of the church. This is what Martin Luther said, remember? 500th anniversary is going to be celebrated by Pope Francis in this coming October. And no wonder. Martin Luther is beginning to sound like the ghostwriter for Pope Francis. This apostolic exhortation is only Act 1 in this ongoing synodal process designed to establish a new church in which exaggerated mercy will render repentance superfluous. This is a new kind of mercy for a new kind of church. And Rome's mercy machine represents the de facto abolishment of the sin of presumption. We don't need to talk about the four last things, not us. That's way too medieval. You see, we're enlightened. We are enlightened Catholics who don't need to be bothered about a bunch of fairy tales about hell and about mortal sin. You see, this is what's happening. We're enlightened. You shall not die the death for eating of the tree of good and evil, for God doth know that in what day soever thou shalt eat thereof, your eyes shall be opened, and you shall be as gods. Remember, this seduction dates back to the Garden of Eden. The stand against the diabolical spirit of Vatican II, taken by men such as Archbishop Lefebvre, is now being totally vindicated. That is the silver lining to all of this. And we don't need to guess about this anymore. We know exactly where this is going because it's here. Lefebvre was right, Davies was right, Castor Mayer was right, Walter Matt was right, von Hildebrand was right, Mara was right, on it goes. These are men long since dead, but they were right. And we need to go back and understand what they were saying in a true and fair and honest way. Because Pope Francis, more than any other pope, has inadvertently unmasked the true spirit of Vatican II, and thus makes it really obvious why these men who resisted that spirit were absolutely right to have done so. These little men nowadays who are attacking these giants, little men attacking giants such as Marcel Lefebvre, the only one that took the stand that needed to be taken at a very, very lonely time. They are unworthy to tie his shoes, in my opinion. You want to talk about humble, soft-spoken, humble soldier of Jesus Christ. It was Archbishop Marcel Lefebvre, who was taking a stand against novelty and innovation that at that time couldn't possibly have been any less popular. It was his duty as a Catholic. He knew his fate. He was a serious prince of the Catholic Church, highly regarded by several popes. He was a council father at the Second Vatican Council, for heaven's sakes. Head of a major religious order, a massive accomplishment as a missionary in Africa already, long before anyone had ever heard of this man. And he recognized the modernist rise to power in the church. He recognized the new mass for exactly what it was, a modernist takeover of the Roman Rite, to be palatable for Protestants. He recognized all of it because he was a holy and saintly man, and he saw what happened. Pope Pius X warned this was coming, and a few great men recognized and remembered the warning. And for these men to be criticized by the little stains running around now pretending to be Catholic, I'm sorry, charity fails sometimes in trying to be patient with these people. He was, in the opinion of Michael Davies, the pioneer traditional movement, Archbishop Marcel Lefebvre, was himself the saint that God raised up at a crucial moment. If you're attending the Latin Mass right now, no matter where it is, Pius X, Fraternity of St. Peter, Institute of Christ the King, Diocesan, that would not be the case were it not for the lonely stand taken by Archbishop Marcel Lefebvre a long time ago. Why? Because he was a council father, because he had the credibility as a prince of the church to stand and make a difference. All hail the great popes of the post-conciliar era who presided over the destruction of the venerable Roman Rite. The one villain in all of this is Archbishop Marcel Lefebvre, whose clueless critics can't be bothered to seriously consider what caused this man, what motivated this man to stand against the revolution in the church as he did. Because it's so much easier to sell him down the river, to turn him over to the mob, to demand Barabbas, crucify him, dig up his body and excommunicate it again. Why? Because he was in schism. Really, you little school marms with your holier-than-thou attitude and lack of understanding, you would dare to call him, Marcel Lefebvre, schismatic. Archbishop Marcel Lefebvre broke from the church. He stayed faithful and loyal exactly to the church of all time, to the teachings of the church of all time. We're in the middle of a revolution, and Archbishop Marcel Lefebvre was no more a schismatic than was St. Athanasius, the champion who stood alone for Christ against a church infested with Arian heretics. Archbishop Lefebvre was, as Michael Davies said, the St. Athanasius of our time. And I stand with him, and I hope and pray that you will too. In the end, we know the devil will not be successful. Christ will be with us always, even unto the consummation of the world. But now the devil's in charge of an awful lot of what's happening in our lives, and we need to find a way to keep the old faith. And to do that, we look to the men who did, in fact, keep the old faith.
We must maintain the tradition of the church with confidence in God, confidence in Blessed Virgin Mary, our beloved Mother, Mother of God. And we must be sure that one day Rome return in tradition.